And it seems like this structure only exists in Nigeria, because when you look at other countries in Africa, they don't have these same structures. Yet people are fighting over not just resource control, people are fighting politically because they want to control power. But you don't find that that fight is coming from people from areas where you have mineral deposits.
Okay. Well, that takes also the second part of the previous question, which is that it's easy to see that many areas that have natural resources are not as developed as the other areas that do not have. Well, it also goes back to the history of Nigeria, to the history of this nation. And I think it also goes for many other nations in Africa. The fact that we have never really cared for production is showing in our attitude towards the areas of production. It is now oil, but remember that Nigeria has not just been a question of oil. Nigeria has not just been a history of oil. In the first, through colonialism up to the first years of the First Republic, we didn't depend on oil. We depended on agriculture. But what happened? Much of the agricultural proceeds came from the rural areas. So we took our palm produce from my village and took it to Enugu to develop. We took the cocoa from Ondo and other places and brought it to Ibadan to develop. So our development trajectory has always favored, not the people producing, but the people who are selling. It tallies. If you do the analysis, if you take the analysis forward, you see that it has to do with this issue of either mobilization or sharing or utilization. Because our emphasis has always been about sharing of revenue. We have never really cared about who is bringing that revenue. So it happened with agriculture. Most of the villages that gave us the agricultural wealth in the earlier years of Nigeria remained underdeveloped. It was the cities where we took these agricultural produce to sell, or from where we exported these things that developed. Now, oil is being produced from the Niger Delta, and some other minerals also exist in some other, we can call it rural areas. Again, nobody is paying much emphasis to these areas of production. Yeah. Instead, all our emphasis is on the areas of sharing, the areas where we share these revenues, the areas where we export these revenues from. That is why it is not impossible that even in Port Harcourt, if you go to Port Harcourt as a city, it might not have much oil. The surrounding areas that bring this oil are not having any positive effect.
I think another country in Africa that gives a perfect example to this is South Sudan, where oil is found in the south, yet you find development in the north. And South Sudan itself is not developed. They have to depend on aid, which of course has been squandered over the years.
Yeah, in the case of South Sudan, they used to be part of the Republic of Sudan, and that's at that time, oil was found in much of the oil was found in the south, whereas it was utilized in the north. And so I think it is an African thing. But in that other case of the South Sudan has now had independence, and they are supposed to be utilizing their oil within South Sudan. But again, there is so much conflict there. Again, because of the attitude towards utilization of revenues.
But why do African leaders, why is there crisis found in these countries where there are rich natural deposits, where you have rich human resources and so on? So why do you have crisis in those countries?
We now come down to leadership, because I told you ultimately all these things are about leadership. You see, the leadership in Africa, the leadership in Nigeria has been a self-serving leadership. A leadership that has never really thought about the country as a whole. There is a leadership myopia in all Nigerians. Immediately they make you a leader of a certain level of the country. That myopia immediately comes to you, and you start seeing something smaller than where you are supposed to be.
But that could also be a fault of the followers also. It could be a fault of the people because they expect you to now focus on a particular area, the area where you're from, and develop that area.
Well, the issue of leadership and following has been a long political debate. I mean, a long debate in political science. The type of leadership we have can also affect the quality of following. A good leader can make the people, can redirect the people, so that after a good leader, another leader who is not good comes and the people can say, no, we can't take anything less than this. But in most of these cases, especially in Nigeria, no good leader has come. The people we call followers cannot even point out any exemplary leader. In Turkey, for instance, they can talk about Atatürk. They can now say, look, after Atatürk, we cannot go for anything less.
But we have the Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Obafemi Awolowo wars, and so on.
And what did these people do? Yes, we have them because they essentially appeal to our base instincts. It's not because they developed us in any way. I mean, the Asian tigers were at the same level with us when these people were in leadership. But where are those Asian tigers now? Which means, even at their own time, Nigeria stagnated. It's not as if Azikiwe took Nigeria to any level, or Ahmadu Bello, or Obafemi Awolowo. We praise them for some other things, not about development.
We will be heading to the polls again in 2019.
Yes.
Well, the activities have already begun, towards that election. What sorts of leaders should we be looking out for? I know we talk a lot in this country, we do. But what sort of leader do we need to help Nigeria get back into that leadership position in Africa itself? Because as it appears, we seem to be losing it.
Well, I think what we need to do in 2015 and 19 is to make sure that we don't go back to anything that has to do with 2015 and below. And before, I mean. Anything that happened in Nigeria, anybody that had anything to do with all these bad things that happened in Nigeria before or up to 2015, we can never allow them come back to leadership.
I want to think
so we want to move
corruption, right?
Yes, in terms of corruption, in terms of bad leadership that we had. Some of the people are already positioning, but they have forgotten that the people still remember their roles. In the pre-2015 political situation, we can never allow them to come back.
But would you say that under this leadership, the current leadership, Nigeria has occupied her position of leadership on the continent also? Because we seem to be missing out on many international events. We were not there at the last ECOWAS meeting.
I'll be brief.
Morocco was.
I'll be brief. Yeah, in the last 2 years, we have made some observable strides positively. Are you getting? And I said it's not more. It's not so much, and it's not as we expected. What we need to do is to concentrate. I mean, and to make sure that we increase those positive strides in the years to come. Certainly, it has not been easy. We are talking about so many years of our history, culminating in the year 2015, when we said no to some extent. So before that time, a whole lot of things have been messed up. It's not something that anybody can correct in 2 years. Are you getting? So I'm not one of those people who expected magic. I'm somebody who has always known that it will be difficult moving away from where we were to where we ought to be. So, but I think we are gradually, very slowly, unfortunately, we're gradually moving away from where we were to the point where we are supposed to be. Where we are supposed to be, we give us that kind of leadership you are talking about in Africa. Because we cannot have the leadership in Africa with what has been happening in Nigeria. But I think that if we continue, if in 2019 we reinforce our judgments, the judgments we made in 2015, I think Nigeria will even move more steps higher.
Dr. Emmanuel Ona, thank you so much
for
joining us.
Thank you.
This is where we end the program this week. I'm glad you could join us to share your comments and thoughts with us at Diplomatic Chan and at Amarachi_Obani. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.